Hi and welcome to the Atheist Dominion. My name's Rob. In a previous video I looked at the mud flood theory and applied its thought processes to a building right here in Brisbane, specifically the St Andrew's Uniting Church on Creek Street. The building fit the mud flood criteria because part of the building, as shown in the video I made, features windows and doors which are below ground level. This kind of evidence gets mud flood believers excited because they think it's hard evidence of a global mud catastrophe that inundated towns and cities around the world and partially buried buildings, after which workmen had to dig the buildings out, but also having to now contend with a higher ground surface. This is the reason why some buildings have doors and windows below ground level. In the video, I clearly showed that the building was constructed on a natural slope of land, and I also provided photographic evidence of the church at different times in the 20th century, with each photo showing the exact same elevation of land. But this wasn't good enough for the mud flood believers, and one of them in particular, by the name of the father, double dared me to find a photograph of the construction or inauguration of the church. His or her reasoning seemed to be that such photos would show the church to be standing on flat ground, i.e. pre-mud flood, thereby showing my video and its conclusions to be false. With a little bit of time to spare while on business in the city, I decided to stop by the John Oxley Library, which contains a unique collection of historical resources pertaining to the state of Queensland. While no photos of the construction of St Andrew's Church are present in this particular archive, my search for photos did yield a photo dated to the 11th of February 1905, a full 6 months before the inauguration of the church on the 27th of August 1905. In addition, in the book Valuing Our Heritage by Noel Adsett, which was also in the John Oxley Library collection, I found this on page 84. The design took advantage of the site, the rapid fall of the ground from the extreme limits of the site, facilitating an harmonious grouping unattainable on level ground. Later, I contacted the church and asked if they had any photos of its construction. And a few days later, Noel Adsett himself, the author of the book, sent me a photo of the church being built in 1904. And here it is. Obviously, the church was built on an already existing slope, as I explained in my previous video. So my message to Of the Father is, I found a photograph of the construction of the church. Your challenge to me seemed to indicate that no such photograph would be found, thereby confirming that the church was originally built on flat ground and was later inundated by mud. As you can see in the 1904 photo, the ground surface is at exactly the same height as it was in 1905, in 1915, in 1950, and in 2018. Or to put it another way, there was no mud flood in Brisbane that partially engulfed the St Andrew's Church. People who believe in mud flood spend their time endlessly collecting photos from the internet and occasionally going out and filming buildings which they believe were victims of some mythical mud flood. What none of them actually do is research. Well, you know what? I did the research. I went out and found photographic evidence and textual evidence to show that the building was built on high ground on an existing slope and that the ground surface hasn't changed because of a mud flood since it was built. I did the research. Why can't you mud flooders do the research? All you do is look at photographs on the internet that you find, shoot a few videos and say, wow, evidence of mud flood. That's not evidence of mud flood. Research means you actually go out and you find the evidence. Archives, libraries, books. There's tons of information out there. You just don't do it because you don't want the answer. And the answer is, your theory is completely idiotic. So what this little exercise clearly shows and predictably is that a little bit of research goes a long way to thoroughly debunking the idiotic conspiracy theories that fester on YouTube. And to all the mud flooders out there, please stop. Mud flood is the most preposterous, insane, demented, idiotic, imbecilic, pointless, wait, let me get my thesaurus. Nonsensical, moronic, implausible, ludicrous, ridiculous, non-compos mentis, and utterly hysterical conspiracy theory yet devised. So unless these mud flooders can prove that there was a global mud catastrophe, prove where the mud came from, and even more importantly, how was such a global catastrophic event erased from the history books and from the archives and from journals and newspapers? How could such an event in the last 150, 200 years be completely erased from history? It can't. Mud flood is an idiotic conspiracy theory like all of them. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again soon.